Passion our purpose, profit our pain. I don't want my name to ever be in vain. A life full of substance is the only thing that will remain the same. Millennial thoughts. Welcome back to another episode of Millennial Thoughts. It's your girl Alicia, and today I have a special guest named Jazmin. She is here to talk about relocating, but today we're specifically talking about relocating and what it looks like for another job. So thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your experience with all the people who are listening today.
Well, I am so excited. So, first of all, thank you for having me. Um, as you already mentioned, my name is Jazmin. I use she, her pronouns. And I actually work in higher education. And so I relocated for my first big girl job. And so I'm excited to talk about relocation and what it looks like as a single Black woman, because that's
Mhm.
also an adventure in itself.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, where did you move from and to where?
Okay, so I moved from Indiana. And so
Hmm.
I was living in the Indianapolis area, but I'm actually originally from Maryville, which is about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. So I
Oh,
packed
okay.
up my Corolla with all of my earthly belongings and we got on the road. We, as in me and my Minnie Mouse, and drove from Indiana about 16 hours to College Station, Texas.
16 hours.
Yeah, 16 hours.
Did you take any like breaks? Did you do like a road trip or did you just like I'm just going?
So I drove for 13 hours. So I got to Texarkana. And then once I
Mhm.
got to Texarkana, I took a nap. And then I got up the next morning and drove the other 3 to 4 hours.
What? You are a G. You did 13 hours straight? Oh,
13 hours
baby.
straight. Absolutely. Yeah, I had places to go and I had to get to my new apartment by it was like Memorial Day weekend. So I had to get
Mhm.
there before the holiday because then I was not gonna be able to get into my apartment. So yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, that's something cool. That's interesting. So you kind of had like a deadline you had to meet, and that's
Yes.
why you had to drive. Okay, because woo, I was like, ooh, that is
Yeah.
a lot. That's a
Yeah.
long time. But okay. I'm familiar with Indianapolis. You know, the Midwest. So
Yeah.
coming from the Midwest, I feel like moving anywhere is like, oh my gosh, it's a shock. Like when you think about relocating, but also when you think about prices, because I feel like the Midwest is kind of cheap, which I do hear like Texas is kind of cheaper. Now it's probably not. But I'm like, was you shocked when you like seeing how much like prices was and different things like that, or were you kind of like, oh, it's okay?
So, the price of living in Texas is a little bit lower, or maybe it's about the same. But
Mm-hmm.
living in a college town, people are able to kind of, I'm not going to say take advantage, but they can kind of charge their price. And the college students will pay it because they need somewhere to live. So I know moving here, I'm like, okay, I need to live somewhere where I'm not surrounded by 18 to 24-year-olds that I work with. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a challenge. But then also, when I lived in Indianapolis, I lived with my best friend, and so I had never lived alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so having to pay bills, and I'm like, oh, I got to do all this stuff by myself. So that in itself, I think it took me a few months to adjust. Also working in higher ed, I know for me, and I don't know if this is anybody else's story or song that's listening, but you get reimbursed after you move. So
Mm.
having to come out of pocket for a lot of things and not getting paid for a month, and it's like, oh, okay. So that in itself was like, you take a deep breath of like, okay, how am I gonna survive for a month after I've
Mm-hmm.
spent all this money? So I think for me that was the hardest part. Also the weather. So moving from Indiana and having basically 4 seasons and moving to Texas and like having hot, cold, and then like real hot or like hell. Like there's no, it's just hot here. And so that was a big adjustment for me, and I didn't realize how much I was a Midwestern girl until that. So yeah.
Duh. Do you miss the Midwest?
To be honest, I don't miss snow. I
Mm-hmm.
don't miss
Okay.
driving in it. I don't miss sliding in it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
miss people acting like they can't drive the first snow, and it snows every year. So I don't miss that necessarily. I do miss my family sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I ever move back, it would probably be because of them, or if I got a job that was just paying me, lots and lots of money. But
Mm-hmm. Which the Midwest don't pay, so I don't know, but good luck, hopefully. One day we get paid what we're worth. How long have you been in the like area?
So I've been here. It'll be 4 years in June.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, that's so cool. So, did you visit the city before you moved?
So, I guess I was a little adventurous. Also, I was finishing grad school and I needed a job. And so I accepted the job the week before graduation. And I started maybe 3 weeks after. And so I had only been here to interview. So they flew me here to interview, and that was the first and last time I was here before I moved. So I did not come and tour the city before moving here. I moved into my apartment sight unseen, just based off pictures online. Yeah.
What?
I moved sight unseen. So yeah, I was all in. And I've been staying in my same apartment complex since I moved here. So I me and my mom ranked them. We ranked apartments and it worked out. So yeah, no, I did not tour the city. Texas was not on my vision board. Texas was not was not a place that I thought about wanting to live or work.
Mhm.
Also, I had never heard of Texas A&M or even like the SEC because I'm a Big
Mhm.
Ten girl, and that was my bread butter, and so
Mhm.
even people are like, oh, this you're gonna go work at this big football school. And I'm like, football? Like, we
Yeah.
like basketball in the Midwest. And so even with those types of things, and then I thought I was moving to Houston. And my friends are like, no, Jazz, you're not moving to Houston. You're moving
Oh, you
to
thought the school was in Houston?
I thought the school was in Houston, okay? I had visited Texas, but like I'm like, oh, it's in Houston, not College Station. And so, yeah, but yes, I moved sight unseen. I would not recommend.
Okay, you wouldn't. That's what I was trying to figure out. Okay, you wouldn't. What is the like closest biggest city to College Station?
So we're actually in something that people call the triangle here. So I'm about an hour and a half. Well, I'm an hour from Waco, which Baylor's in Waco.
Mhm.
I am an hour and a half from Houston, but Houston is huge. So I'm an hour and a half from some parts of Houston. Other parts of Houston, I could be like 2 hours from. I'm
Mm.
about 2.5 to 3 hours from Dallas, and then I'm an hour and a half from Austin, and then 3 hours from San Antonio. So I can get to basically any major city within an hour and a half or 2 hours, just about.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And so since you moved, like Indianapolis is like, for the Midwest, it's kind of considered a big city, you know? But
Yeah.
now that you're in a smaller city, do you feel like you have any feeling about that? Like, do you want to go back to the bigger cities or do you like the small city living?
So what's interesting is that since I grew up about 45 minutes from Chicago, I was so used to Chicago and like going downtown and those types of things. And my parents working in Illinois. And so when you have that experience, and even living in Indianapolis, it was a lot smaller than Chicago. Um, and so I had a good time in Indianapolis. And when I moved here, I was like, oh my goodness, I live in this little college town. But the town does give me what I need, right? So I have grocery stores, I have Target. We don't have a good mall. The food is okay. Um, but for me, yes, I do want to move back to a bigger city or at least be a little bit closer, like 30 to 40 minutes. I think that Houston may be the next move.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a PhD, which is why I'm kind of stuck in College Station for a little bit longer.
Oh.
Because although I quit my job, I did not quit my PhD program. And so still with that of like, okay, I have a little bit more time to be here. And so what's not too far away where I could still make it in town if I needed to. So yeah, definitely want to get to a bigger city. I've thought about Austin is super expensive now because it's turned into like a tech
I know I
hub.
want to visit that place so bad, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and so Austin is probably one of the more liberal parts of the state. Just like I mean Houston too. Like you have those pockets. And so yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I need to get back to a bigger city because there's not much to do in this little town.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. What side note, what are you getting your doctorate in?
Oh, so I'm getting my PhD in educational administration with an emphasis in higher education.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
So,
yes.
well, oh, and so you're getting it like at Texas A&M.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay, that is so cool. So you dropped the bomb, like you. So you said that you quit your job,
Yeah.
okay, but you're like in. grad school to get your PhD.
Hmm.
So did you like? I guess I would say like, what made you quit your job knowing that you still had to stay there, or were you thinking about quitting your job to like move? Um.
So, as you know, since you work in higher education,
Mhm.
um, pay was an issue. And
Mhm.
so we'll just let the elephant out the bag already. So I moved to Texas to take my first big girl job, and they paid me $37,000. And so to move across the country for $37,000, um, I wouldn't recommend people doing that. Because it's very difficult to live off that salary, whether you're in Texas or in Indiana. Like, it's just difficult.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very difficult. It's
and
sad that
so
they still are offering that. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
And so my first job, and so then my first job when I moved here, I loved my job. I was doing interpersonal violence prevention work, so domestic violence prevention work, sexual assault prevention.
Mm.
I was doing very fulfilling work in collegiate health and wellness, and I loved it. But they, you may get a 1% or 2% raise. You may get a merit raise, so you make a little bit more, but you're not getting a 5 to 7 or even a $10,000 raise. And there
Mhm.
was no room for growth in my first position. And so
Mhm.
I decided to take another role at the university where I was getting paid a little bit more, but I was making maybe another 5,000
Mhm.
more. And I was just like, I just don't know if higher education is for me, because I don't
Mhm.
think that I went to school to get all this education to struggle. Um,
Okay.
and so
Mhm.
I had to have a lot of those conversations. And, of course, my mom was like, you need to stay at this place until you finish your PhD, because, as an employee, they gave you some tuition, you know.
Mhm.
Also now, the university is paying for folks to go get their PhDs. Like, they're covering all the costs, which is a great thing.
What?
But
Maybe I should come get my PhD for free.
yeah, so like they are now covering it for full-time employees,
Mm.
but money in my hand today is worth more, right? So because I calculated everything out of like, okay, if I leave, how much money am I leaving on the table? Because I had to think about those things as a student. um
Mm.
but knowing that I needed to make more money, so when I do finish with my PhD, that I won't be overqualified, because I'll still be needing to get a job. And so being a program coordinator, or even just in an entry level role with the PhD, is not helpful. And so for me, I had to figure out how to pivot so that when I am done in 2024, that I'll be competitive, and be able to get a job. Now, this sounds very easy coming out my mouth now, but to move across the country for a job, to work at an institution, and then you quit the job, it was a struggle for me, because I felt like
Mhm.
a failure. I was like,
Mm.
I uprooted my whole life to work at this institution. And, you know, um, I think because I have a master in public health. And so a lot of my socialization with higher education has been, mentorship, and like, just learning on the spot. And so I was like, I know I love this and I love what I'm doing, but I can't sustain my life.
Mhm.
And I'm like, how long am I going to be on my mom's payroll? Like, I already went and got a master's degree and barely, and didn't really work. I had a graduate assistantship, but it's like, okay, 30 will be here before I know it. I probably should sort of be self-sufficient,
Mhm.
or at least not ask my mom for hundreds of dollars every month. And so for me, that was the motivating factor of like,
Mhm.
and some people are like, well, you should get a roommate. And I'm like, y'all, we're not doing this. I shouldn't have to make sacrifices for my job in order
That's what
to.
I'm saying, which is so hard though. But working in
Yeah.
higher education, I do too. I'm like, I can't even afford a 1 bedroom apartment on my own. That's sad.
Yeah.
And to
And
get your degree and stuff like that, like I'm working and I'm barely making it.
absolutely. And so, but I took a job at the business school before I left A&M. And
Mhm.
you know, I was, supporting students, and they're graduating, and they're gonna make a hundred
Double, right?
plus.
Double than what we make.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm cultivating you, I'm supporting you, I'm helping you. And I'm, not scratching the
Privilege.
surface.
Yeah.
And I had a student, and he was like, Jackson, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? He was like, you got all these skills. And so my students hyped me up, which I appreciate them, of like, you can work somewhere else, you can work in industry, you can do this, you can do that. And so
Mhm.
that was the push for me to start looking. Obviously, I still work in student affairs and higher education and collegiate health and wellness. working at an association. But even with that, it was scary. Everyone was like, why didn't you move yet? Like, you don't have to stay in College Station anymore. And I'm like, y'all, I gotta finish my degree. My mama threatened me. One of my committee members are like, you gotta finish, because that's what people worry. Oh, you don't work at this institution anymore. Are you gonna complete this degree?
Mhm.
But what I will tell
I'd be like,
anyone that's
no.
considering getting a PhD, figure out if
Mhm.
you want to live in that environment. Um, and sometimes we're like, oh, I want to go back to school and I want to do this, especially for us educators, because you want to, it's something about being your best, right? And so I want to go get this other degree, but can you live there for 5 to 6 years? Is that a
Mhm.
commitment that you can make that, okay, I'm going to be here? Because for me, I should finish my PhD in about 4.5, but
Mhm.
I was working. And so, but yes, some people don't want to live in a college town. And so
Mhm.
those are just things to consider too. Or even moving. I have friends that moved for to start their PhD. And so even relocating for that, what does that look like as a person that is like doing a terminal degree? So I think
Mhm.
that there's so much when we think about just relocating. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, also um relocating is very expensive. And so for any of the folks that are in higher education, and I mentioned the reimbursement piece, but it's it's almost, well, it is, it's an accessibility issue and almost a class issue when we think about in higher education having to move for jobs. And so my mom paid for my move, which I was grateful for, but I was straight out of grad school. I didn't have the money to move across the country. And so also that piece too of like, if you don't have that help and support when you move, it may take longer. You may not be able to move in 3 weeks. Like I was able to move in just 3 weeks,
Mhm.
move and all that stuff. And so I think that's also something to think about, because we'll see on like social media where people are like, oh, you need to just move out of your small town. And it's like, yeah, that sounds good, but it costs money, it costs time.
Mhm.
And so I think sometimes people don't really understand the nuances behind moving in general.
Yeah, that's why when you was like 3 weeks, I was like, oh my gosh, that was really quick.
Hmm.
Um, so but when you were talking to them, when you were interviewing, like, did you ask about relocation and stuff like that? Or they was just like, oh, we reimburse after you get here?
So of course I asked, and when I was interviewing, and this was obviously pre-pandemic, because I don't think they're flying anybody anywhere anymore. But anytime I interviewed at an institution, I asked about relocation, because I have mentors in the field that have
Mhm.
moved. Obviously, a lot of them were moving for like director level positions or even like AVP, like those types of positions, but they still usually reimburse. And so at A&M, I think for my position, they gave me $1,500. But obviously that wasn't enough.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so, and then it's reimbursed. And so I didn't get it until I got my first paycheck. So mind you, I lived here for about a month. And it was like I got my first paycheck, and that's when I got the relocation back. And so I always tell my mentees, like, ask about relocation or housing. Like if you can't find housing right away, will they house you? Like there's so many
Right.
things that you
Mhm.
you have to ask. Now, for my mentors that are, assistant vice presidents or vice presidents, they may get 10 grand to move, right? And they could,
Mhm.
somebody's gonna come pack up their house and pack up their car and do all that stuff. And so also as you move up, because I mean, I even have someone I know that works in oil and gas, and she moved across the country to take a job, and they were able to, compensate her well for her moving. And so if that's something to always ask about reallocation, and not
Mhm.
reallocation, but relocation. How are they going to pay for it? Does your
Mhm.
job handle it? Do you get reimbursed? And I think sometimes people are scared to ask those questions, but even negotiating that into your package is important, so you can move.
Yeah. So, did you have any money saved up, like, when you move, like when you apply for the job or something like that? I know you said you were thinking about Texas and stuff, and having your mom help you move. So it sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like a no because you're laughing, but
No, well, I'm just laughing because as a grad student, and I mean, I'm
Yeah,
preaching to the choir, right? But
yeah, you are.
I didn't work, and so no, I had no money saved up. I had money from my
Mm.
master's graduation, from my
Mhm.
family that people gave me. And my
Mhm.
mom's like, okay, Jazz, I'll pay for first and last month's rent. Cause when I moved, I had never paid that before. We moved to a college town. I had to pay first and last month's rent. And so my mom gave me that. I decided, we decided that I was gonna start all over. And so I didn't
Mhm.
take any of my furniture with me.
Oh.
So
Mhm.
I had to buy stuff too when I got here, which we can talk about how the pros and cons to moving that way. But no, I didn't have money saved. And do I wish I would have had money saved? Yes, because there were just so many little costs that you don't think about. Like, for
Mhm.
example, seasonings. Like, I wasn't driving seasons across the country, but guess what? When I need to make a meal, I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have any Lowry's. Like, I don't have salt and pepper. Like, just those look like having to buy all the little things.
Mhm.
I tell my mentees to make registries. I was like, you make a housewarming registry, you make a registry, because I was prideful. I'm like, well, I can buy my own furniture, I can buy all this stuff, and my mom would help me, but I wasn't asking anybody else. And it's like, y'all, we got to figure out how to help each other. And so I tell everybody, just make a registry when you move, because people will buy you stuff. So no, I didn't have any money saved. I would encourage people to save money, but I think it's also hard if you are a grad student and you aren't making money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
I was a grad student, but it's just so funny to me because I feel like low key I had more money when I was in school than I do as an adult after I graduated. So I don't know, but I went back home after school. So I'm like, yeah, shout out to you because you had a job. Because like another thing is like trying to get that job working in higher education. So
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you got a job and you was able to move because some people did get jobs and some people didn't get jobs, and it's just like, oh my goodness, like. I did all this schooling. I can't even find a job. I went to TPE and everything like that. It was a lot of housing stuff. I didn't really want to do housing, but you know how that goes or whatever. And so knowing that in this field, we're kind of getting off relocation, but knowing
It's
that in
fine.
this field you have to move a lot for jobs and stuff like that, but you don't really get paid. I'm just interested in saying like what makes you want to like pursue your doctorate degree in the field.
So I have two public health degrees. And
Mm-hmm.
so me getting the PhD in higher education, a lot of it was about credibility. So yes, I have a master's in public health and student development theory and public health theory, and like
Mm-hmm.
all of these things intersect. And I can tell you that. And if I'm in a class, I can explain that. But on paper, I have public health training, and I have worked in higher ed, but really I wanted the credibility. I also want to be able to impact just systems of change. So dismantling just systems of oppression in higher education. Pay is
Mm-hmm.
one of them, like the pay discrepancies that we have, even equitable hiring practices. My PhD is going to be on Black women and their experiences in graduate school. And so for me, that was really why. Also, I know that, because I don't know if I want to be a dean of students or a vice president of student affairs. Like, I don't know, maybe one day, but like knowing that there is money at a point.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that once I finish my PhD, if I decide I want to go in the industry, I can, because they will hire me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've learned too, of like maybe higher ed is not going to be my place forever, but all
Mm-hmm.
of the skills that I have are transferable. And having a PhD in certain spaces will get me higher pay. Um, and so I think that for me that was why. Also,
Mm-hmm.
just to be very frank, wanting to get the old white men out the way. And that was my, like, okay, I in order to impact change, I got to be within the system, and I gotta, because I can
Mm-hmm.
tell y'all all the things that are wrong with higher education, but if I have Dr. Jones, somebody gonna pay me attention because I
Mm-hmm.
I went and got this degree. Me and my colleagues that are in our doc program, we argue all the time about how none of us need PhDs to do the jobs that we're doing. Actually, a lot of us didn't need master's degrees to do those entry level jobs that we
Sure
do.
didn't. That's why I was going back. Yes. Literally, the jobs that it don't be requiring no masters. Or people be in the field, and that no shade to people who don't have masters in higher education, but like I have my master's in higher education, but it's like see how you work in higher education, you don't even have to have the degree to even work in
Yeah.
higher education. So I
No.
just think that that's crazy too. But I
Yeah.
see why you getting like your doctorate and stuff like that. It's just
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, and then I do want to teach, and so I
Mm,
probably will teach at some point. And so most times to teach at a like a R1 or research one institution, they want you to have a
mhm,
PhD, and so just those types of things, to just enhance the field and the academy. It's
mhm,
just,
yeah.
I mean, that's the goal.
Oh, okay.
And then
Mhm.
also knowing that once I finish with my PhD, I probably can write my own ticket. I've been trying to be intentional about the jobs that I take. And so yeah.
Oh, okay then. Well that's good to know. And then so probably when you're done with your doctor, you're probably going to relocate to a new city.
Yes, probably
Okay.
so. I'm thinking the either the East Coast. I've never
Mhm.
lived on the East Coast. I think that would be nice. But yes, I think I have two more moves in me.
Two more.
Um, until I'm ready to settle myself somewhere.
Mhm.
But yeah, I work remote now.
Mhm.
Which I never in a million years thought I would be working remote. And so even working remote, I have a lot more flexibility. And so the thought of going back to a brick and mortar at a university, I think it might be a hard
Yeah,
sell for me.
definitely.
Um, so that is the part where people are like, okay, when you're done, and I was like, ooh, I might still be in the industry or be in the association life because and the amount of like working remote, the amount of racism that I don't experience working at home by myself, um,
Mhm.
because I'm not
It's
gonna experience
peace.
that in my own house. So
Mhm.
I think that is the part. But yes, I do want to move, even if I'm still working remote, I definitely want to relocate again.
Mhm. Oh, okay then. So are you thinking like now like where you want to go? Are you saving now? Are you like let me just finish this PhD and then let me figure it out?
So I'm preparing for the next step. Um,
Mhm.
I think as long as I'm working remote, I can kind of take my time. I know Houston will be the next move for me. So
Mhm.
I may live in Houston for the next, 3 to 5 years, and then maybe after that I will move to the East Coast. It all depends on the job, the job market. Um,
Mhm.
I eventually probably will move back to the Midwest as my parents get older. Uh,
Mhm.
maybe I'll be 8 hours away, so that might not even be in the Midwest. It might be in Georgia somewhere, but um, being close enough to my family where I can be there within a day, um, without if I had to just drive versus I always have to get on a plane to go home.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, cuz that job would be whew,
yeah, I'm
child.
not doing it.
Yeah. And so I know you were talking about how you restarted all over earlier. I was gonna ask, like, I guess we can talk about maybe like the pros and cons of relocating for for a job. Like, what are some pros you think, and then what are some cons?
So I know for me, we'll talk about the pros first, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about the cons. So moving to work at relocating and starting over, I think helped really grow me up.
Mhm.
Because when you live in a city where you don't know anyone and you just move there to work, I think your your dedication to yourself, right? So you're doing that just for you. And you have to be okay with being alone sometimes. I feel like I learned a lot about myself just by living by myself.
Mhm.
Also, you are forced to create friends and cultivate a village because you do need support, you do need community. Also, working in higher ed, if you're at a predominantly white institution like I was, having to seek out mentorship and those types of things in safe spaces. Um, I also think learning. So I worked at a Big Ten, I've worked at a SEC. Like being able to learn the different things for me helped a whole lot. And then just being able to, when you move for a job, it once you do it once, it's something that you can do again. And so it
Mhm.
also builds that self-efficacy and confidence. Because
Mhm.
once I drove 16 hours to Texas, I'm like, I can do anything. If I,
Woo.
and so even with that,
Mhm.
it it helps a lot with that too. I
Mhm.
think the cons of moving for a job though is it's a huge commitment and it's a huge risk.
Yes.
So I knew that that was even with doing deciding to do a PhD. Like I had told my mom, I was like, well, if I get the job here, I'll start my PhD within a year. And so I kept my promise to my mom. But even moving across the country, people are like, you moved across the country to just quit a job. And so for me, I think I also had that pressure because I mean, I was almost basically at the institution for 3 years and I had worked two different jobs at the institution. But if I could have found another job at the institution, maybe I would have,
Mhm.
because you also have that fear of being a failure if it doesn't work out.
Do you
Um,
feel like oh, sorry.
no, you're good.
I was like, do you feel like that? Like, I don't know if you were telling everybody that you quit your job, but I'm just like, why do they like? I feel like people say things. I'm not talking about your family, but in general, people put on these perceptions. It's like, okay, I moved across country, but I'm like, yes, I did it. Like, have you ever moved across country for a job? Like,
Yeah,
people don't know how it is when you do it. Okay, I came to this job, I moved, and I'm like, okay, I don't like it, or I do. Like, I remember I moved to Atlanta, and I'm like, I feel you. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, like I can move anywhere because I moved to Atlanta in a sense, but I'm like, okay, I don't like Atlanta. And people are like, oh, but you said you loved it. Okay, that's fine, but I don't have to like it and I can move somewhere else. Like Atlanta's not the all be all. Like College Station, like there's 50 states in America.
yeah,
Like I just don't understand when people are like this, like, oh, you went here to do this, you went here to do that. Okay, and I figured this out and I don't want to do it no more,
yeah,
like people put that on you like, no, okay, I don't have to stay here for this, I don't have to stay here for that. And I just really find that that's like kind of frustrating and annoying because
mhm,
it's like you didn't help me move, well, in a sense not you, but like
yeah,
they didn't help me move. That okay, I said I moved here and I did this, and it's just like I'm trying to figure it out. Do I want to stay here? Do I not want to stay here? Do I want to finish this? So I feel like it's so much I don't really know like conversations and stuff, like all this and that stuff. And that's why I feel like sometimes I feel like if people don't really support you, I'm like, I just gotta get you out my ear because like you doubted me and then like I'm doubting myself. But it's like, okay, you quit your job, but like you got a remote job now, like
yeah,
you're probably making way more money. Who cares if you quit the job? Because honestly, in higher ed, sometimes it's hard to move up. Like I've applied to several jobs at the
yep,
institution that I'm in, and it's like, what are they looking for? What's this? What's that? You don't hear back. And so like this generation, like we're all about growth. Like we not staying places 30 and 50 years to
mm-mm,
be, looking and be like, oh, I got this, I got that. And so I just feel like it's a different generation. People are like, oh, why did you move this? Why are you doing like I need to get paid more and I want to be able to have this. I want to be able to have freedom, flexibility. Like it's okay for me to be able to change my job. It's okay for me to be able to move to a different city.
yeah. But I think I
Mhm.
had I had people, even folks that I work with, oh, you didn't, because I worked one job for almost 2 years and then my other one for about a year and 2 months. And oh, you young folks don't stay in jobs long. And it's just like, well, there's no room for growth in this position. And I need to move on. And it's
Right.
like every job that I interviewed for wanted to pay me at least 15 to 20,000 dollars more or more than that. Why would I stay here? For
Literally,
for
like,
for for loyalty to a place that does not have loyalty to me. And so what I always tell people is that you have to be loyal to yourself. That
mm-hmm.
institution they posted my job before I left. They will find somebody else to do the job. And so for me, it was about taking care of myself. But when I
Mm-hmm.
moved here, my mom was super supportive and she's like, we prepared you, for this and this, that, and other. But like my stepdad didn't want me to move. My grandma didn't want me to move. I had a lot of people not wanting me to move. I also had people in my family that assumed that I had a husband or a man here. And I'm like, y'all, I literally moved for a job. He is not here in the shadows, I promise. But I had people like, oh, Jazmin, I know she didn't move for a job because with my family, that I guess it wasn't far fetched for my mom, but I guess for other people it was because she's a single woman, she's moving somewhere by herself, and she gonna be okay. And so that was also a piece too, because people would just flat out ask me like, okay, you've done that academic stuff, now it's time for you to find a husband and settle down, or you're gonna move to Texas and you're just gonna get married. And I'm like, y'all, I work in higher ed and I work the evenings where and I be tired on the weekends. Like, what are we doing? But
Like, where's somebody gonna find me at? At the
absolutely.
event?
Yeah, so it was also that, and then another con is that we decided that I was going to start all over with
Mhm.
like buying furniture and stuff. Which, okay, I've been here almost 4 years, and I actually moved to another apartment in my complex, so I have a 2 bedroom, 2 bath,
Mhm.
so I have a good amount of space. But I tell people, when you're moving, you focus on, if you're gonna start all over again, or like my mentee, I have a mentee that works in housing, and so okay, you're gonna get your first place. Start with your bedroom and work your way through. Don't let people rush you when you buy furniture,
Mhm. They
because
said, "Oh, that's funny," because I was watching this YouTube video. It's like, "Don't let these influencers rush you, thinking you have to have your whole house together because they're getting stuff sent to them."
like, but it just doesn't happen that way. And so for me, and people could, folks might call me bougie, but I don't like air mattresses. So when I moved to
Oh,
Texas,
mm-mm.
I had ordered me a bed and a bed frame and everything, because I was like, I am not driving across the country and I'm not sleeping on
And
the air
sleeping on no
mattress.
air mattress. I'm not doing
But
that.
see, that's just me. I know other
Mm-mm.
people, they sleep on air mattresses for a few months until they, not Jasmine. I got to be able to lay somewhere and be comfortable.
Yeah, that's me for real. I'm like, air mattresses.
No,
I need my bed to come with me. I don't know what else is coming, but
yeah,
that bed needs to come.
yeah. And so, but we had ordered me like a bed and a bed frame and stuff, and
Mhm.
FedEx lost my stuff.
What?
Yes, so I get here and they loot my stuff is lost. We had got planned to get it delivered like the day before. Everything was fine. They lost my bed and everything that we ordered. And so I had to go to a local furniture store, one of the local furniture stores in town, that delivered day of. Okay. And I ended up buying my bedroom set and stuff there, and having to call my mom, like, Mom, could you send me some more money? Of course, because like, Mom. And the guy delivers my bedroom furniture on top of his Impala, because all delivery trucks were gone. Okay. It was an ordeal. And by the end of that day, so I had drove across the country. So by the end of that day, I just was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep. I put sheets on the bed, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to sleep.
At this point, because that was a long day.
Yeah. And so even with that, just being prepared for the unexpected, because
Mhm.
we were like, okay, like we ordered the bed, this and that. Also, when I first moved here, I brought my 50-inch that I used to have in my living room when I lived in Indiana, in one of my apartments, and I bought it with me. And uh, you know, I had it on like a little table, like a little coffee table thing. And
Mhm.
my mom's like, "You need to go buy a TV stand." And I'm like, Mom, it's one step at a time. And you don't have
Mhm.
that, and you don't have this. And it's like, girl, I had to start all over again. And so it's also giving yourself grace,
Mhm.
when you choose to move or you choose to relocate. I also, and I would be wrong to not say this. Moving across the country is not for the faint at heart. Um,
Mhm.
and I know for me, I knew I did not want to move back home, but I
Mhm.
had many a days where I was like, I don't know if I should be living here. Um, and you may question if you made the right decision, if you made the right choice. I also, during the pandemic, so I moved here in 2019. Shortly, the pandemic happened in 2020.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I spent a lot of days by myself, you know.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
so I think, though, if those are things that you have to think about. People have told me to get a dog, and I'm like, I don't want any responsibilities, and I
At
love
all?
dogs.
Like, why do I want a dog? It's more responsibility. I need
Yeah.
myself.
And it's like, I'm just trying to feed myself right now.
Mhm.
But it's those types of things where you can feel like, okay, maybe I do need to move back home. Or like, my mom has like, oh, are you gonna move back home? Or my stepdad's like, are you gonna, move back home after you finish? And it's like, I don't want to live in Maryville, Indiana, y'all. It's nothing that, like, I don't, And so it's also those things too. And a lot of the
Is that
fear
close to
that,
Gary, Indiana? I'm sorry.
yeah, yes, it is.
Okay, I'm like, you've been saying that. I'm like, I know somebody that lived. I remember that city. I remember it is close to Chicago. But yes, it's close to Gary, Indiana, where the Jacksons were at.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Because I'm like, this city sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you are all good.
So I was gonna say that. So you have been there for 4 years,
Yeah.
and that the pandemic. was definitely hard for everybody, but especially you because you're by yourself. And I feel like sometimes we don't talk about that either. It's like you can feel lonely because let me tell you, I'm not even that far away from my family, but I'm just still like, okay, should I go home? Did I make the right decision? Stuff like that. Like I feel like people don't talk about loneliness a lot, and how you were talking about how you lived with your roommate when you was in school, which
Yeah.
in school I didn't. In my last year, I didn't live with anybody, but I didn't really like that. But now I'm like, I'm living with people. You know, you're trying to save money and stuff like that. But going back to we can't even afford to live on our own. It's like, okay, I have a roommate, but do I really want this roommate, or do I because I'm trying to save money? But also, dang, I do feel like I want to like live on my own. So, do you feel like you have the advice on that? Like, not trying to feel lonely, but if you do live by yourself, or how to cope through that. Through that.
Yeah. So I know for me, me and my best friend, we lived together. Oh my goodness. Basically all of undergrad and then while we were both getting our masters. And so we had lived together. We had a well-oiled machine when it came to paying bills and doing
Mhm.
stuff together and groceries. But living alone, I really love not having to consider anybody else. I do. Like, I don't have to consider anybody else. If I decide that I want to go to the store and buy, for example, me and my best friend had cooked macaroni and cheese when we lived together because we couldn't decide on how we wanted to make it. And that sounds very silly, but we just couldn't decide, so we didn't eat it. And then we
Mhm.
both realized we make mac and cheese exactly the same. We've been friends for 15 years, but we would not cook macaroni and cheese. It was something wrong. But like I can go to the grocery store and buy what I want. If I want to have
Mhm.
company, I can have people. Like, you just don't have to consider this other person their feelings. And so I appreciate that. But on the flip side, I miss having my best friend to sit and binge watch TV or like, so
Mhm.
having to build community is has been important. And
Mhm.
so I am an introvert, and a lot of people don't believe I'm an introvert because I can sit and talk to anyone and like, I enjoy people. I'm a people person. But living alone has allowed me to be able to recharge. And I think with my best friend, I was able to come home and recharge. But she's the only other person that I've lived with besides my parents. And so I couldn't imagine moving here and having a roommate because they don't know me. They don't know that when I
Mhm.
get off work that I may sit in my car for 5 to 15 minutes because I'm trying to just decompress.
Okay.
Like, I get overstimulated. So yeah, I can table all day. I can table or give a presentation to hundreds of people, but once I'm done, I want to go sit in the corner. And so sometimes my house to me is my peaceful place. And so
Mhm.
I think that has helped me, and just also just being okay with like Jasmine and like loving the different parts of me, and so I take myself out to dinner. I go to the
Mhm.
movies by myself. Like, I do intentional things to make myself feel good too.
Mhm.
But then, I have a really good friend that lives in Houston. So like I'll go to her house and we'll do things. And like I try to be intentional about making time for fun. Um, and so on the weekends, that's what I try to do because I really had gotten to a point when I first moved here that I just worked.
Mhm.
My identity was so wrapped up in my job. Um, and what I could do for this institution when I wasn't really taking care of myself. And so um that's something that I had to work through. And I think a lot of people that work in higher education are just helping
Mhm.
fields. A lot of our identity is tied up into our job title and our education. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, who are you outside of this? And so when
Mhm.
you relocate and you don't have your mama, you don't have all these other
Mhm.
distractions, you have
Mhm.
to sit with yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think people don't like that, which is why sometimes people move to cities and they automatically get coupled up, and that's fine. I think relationships are great, but like that wasn't for me, and so I had to really figure out healthy coping skills,
Mhm.
especially because during the pandemic. I was in the house for months at a time by myself. I wasn't seeing other people. And so, even with that, yeah, FaceTime is great. But like, sometimes you need a hug from somebody else, or like even those types of things too, and having a good therapist. So therapy and Jesus work well, people that are listening.
I'm cracking
you
up.
know
Mhm.
or whatever you believe in, they work well together. And so having a therapist, having some like making sure I was walking and doing different things, because loneliness
Mhm.
does come, and you're like, okay, I'm lonely and I need support. And so also articulating that to folks. So I tell my best friend I miss her all the time. Um, and so that has helped me too. But the loneliness is definitely one of the biggest challenges when you relocate, and people not coming to visit you either.
No.
So I will tell anyone, if your family don't travel all the time and you move across the country, you just be prepared for them not to come see you.
Mhm.
Because I've been home to Indiana countless times, but my
Mhm.
parents haven't been to visit me.
Mm-mm.
And so yeah.
I
And
think that
so
that's a disappointment too.
yeah.
This girl was like, "Yeah, I moved here, but my parents don't really visit me." But I don't take like me. That don't affect me because I'm like, well, where the heck my parents gonna be? I don't have enough space for my parents to stay now. If I had like a house or something like that where they could stay when they could come,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel some type of way. But I don't have nowhere for them to stay, so I don't feel no type of way personally. But my other friend, she kind of feels some type of way too because she's like, I do have an extra bedroom. Like y'all
Yeah,
want me to
I
keep
do.
coming visiting, y'all keep, but it's like y'all can come out here and y'all have somewhere to stay,
Yeah,
but I reciprocate the energy because my friend, she came and visited me. Now she moved. I'm gonna go and visit her. So,
absolutely.
but I also travel all the time. So you do kind of got to take that in consideration. They not gonna come visit you, girl, because when you lived there, they wasn't even traveling. So they not thinking, oh, let me come travel and go see her.
Yeah. But I
So
mean, what's
I,
interesting for me though too is that like I have cousins that live in other parts of the country too. And so I know they came and saw me, but I couldn't afford to go see them. And
mm-hmm.
so now that I travel for work all the time, I always have flight points and stuff. And so I went to go see them for Thanksgiving. And I was like, y'all,
Oh,
y'all,
hmm.
I literally just didn't have it. I'm like, do y'all know how much money I was making?
Now that
I
is
didn't,
true. Okay, now, now sometimes you just ain't got it, and the field we work in.
it's like,
Shoot,
it's
I
like,
want to go.
it's like, y'all, I didn't have it. That's the truth. And my cousin's like, but we saw your closets. And I'm like, I gotta wear clothes. Um, but even
Okay.
with that of like, wanting to go see people. And so I tried to do the same too of like, okay, if this person comes to see me, I gotta make sure I go see them. But yes, I have a guest room, which okay,
Mhm.
I have a 2 bedroom because during the pandemic I had a 1 bedroom and I felt trapped and my rent
Mhm.
only went up like $200. And so I have a 2 bedroom, but like I have a guest bed in there. And so
Mhm.
with my parents, I'm like, y'all just come on and just stay. And they had their own bathroom over there. And so yeah, Jasmine's like, whenever y'all are ready. But my grandma doesn't go anywhere, but she came here because she nosy, and so she needs to see where I was living at.
Okay, it's the nosy ones that's gonna come.
Yeah, and so I've had some of my family members come, like my godmother and my best friend and stuff have been here. So I've had some visitors. But yeah, that's the part that I think is sometimes difficult because
Mhm.
I don't want to go to Indiana for Christmas.
Mhm.
I don't want to be there and be cold. And so it's like we got to figure out another way to celebrate the holiday. And so it's
Mhm.
those things, but I mean, you build community and you build support. And so I think the people that are that I've made, my friends that I've made since I moved to Texas, I feel like they know me, they know a different part of me
Mhm.
because I've had to have a lot of strength and I've had to do a lot of things.
Mhm.
Or like even like I had a major surgery and like even with that of like dealing with like healing and not being near your family because when you have those moments, of course it would be ideal to be near your family, but knowing that like, okay, I can go through this process and I can be okay and I can still navigate things. Now I did drive a week after surgery, which I probably shouldn't have, but
Oh.
you know you have this forced independence because like if you don't
Mhm.
do it, who's gonna do it?
Mhm.
So
So yeah. So do you feel like you adjusted to College Station well? Like you feel like you have your community and everything like that since you've been there?
adjustment is a really complicated word. Um, I think that I have learned how to live here, um,
Mhm.
and my mom has always told me paint the corner you're in. So I have made the best of living here.
Mhm.
I think that not working at the university has definitely changed my perspective, even of the town, because the university makes up a huge portion of the city and that
Mhm.
type of thing. And so even now, like I work in my house. So, but I go out obviously to get my hair done and like patronize local businesses and stuff. But a lot of the Aggie experience that I was getting that made up my experience living here was because of my job. And
Yeah.
so now, yeah, I just exist in this town. And so I think now it's probably better because I go on campus to go to class and then that's really it. So I think now that the it's like I'm living here, but I'm always in Houston, or I'm living here and like I'm always traveling for work. And so
Mhm.
I think it's fine, as of right now. I also know that I'm not going to be here forever.
Mhm.
And I think that has also changed perspective, because I finished my PhD in 2024, and like maybe I will move to Houston next year. And so even the fact that, like, I think 2 years ago, if we would have had this conversation, it would have been like, oh my God, I got to be here forever. But like
Yeah.
the end is near. So it just feels different too.
Yeah, that's too. Because I'm like, I'm ready to go too, but I'm like, just because I'm ready to go, don't mean that I'm not going to like enjoy my experience or
Yeah.
try to enjoy my
Yeah.
experience. Because I know, like, okay, this is cool or whatever, and I'm on to the next. So I feel like that is important too. Well, you said you've been staying like in the same apartment complex or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody wants to move to College Station. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. It's interesting that you say like college towns can are like more expensive or people can take more advantage of it, because I was thinking opposite. I was like, oh, maybe I need to move to a college town because I feel like college towns are cheaper because there's college students there. But now, I'm like hearing you, you're like, oh no, they might be more expensive because college students aren't gonna pay anything
Yeah.
to have a living, a house or something like
Yeah.
that. So that was interesting. But do you remember like how much it costs for you to relocate?
um, it was no less than 3 grand,
Okay.
no less than that. And I'm more so thinking it was between 3 and 5.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
and that's probably not counting furniture, because
Okay. Okay.
I had to pay first and last month's rent, so that was
Mhm.
almost $2,000 by itself. And then, well, since I drove my car, I had to pay for gas and stuff. So yeah, probably all in all, and maybe that includes with some furniture. But yeah,
What do you consider cross country? Like, is it how many hours you had to drive? Is it because it was a different state?
well, across the country, I drove 1,000 miles. So for me, that
Mm.
to me, that's across the country. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, because I
I
mean,
was just wondering when I think of cross, because I guess I'm thinking like letter. I'm like, oh, California to New York. I was thinking down. I'm like south. So that's why I was just wondering, like, oh, what do you think across the country is?
yeah,
I don't know how many states are in between
me either. I don't either.
Indi-
It's not that many though, because
Indiana and Texas. Yes, I was like, I feel like it's close, but also Texas is big, so
it's
we
a
know
big
that.
state. Yeah, it could take you 8 hours to drive across the state, and so yeah, I have no idea,
Yeah.
but I know I drove 1,000 miles, and to me that was too far.
That
That
was
was
okay. I'm cracking up. That is so funny. Well, I really enjoyed this. I really thought that it was some great information. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But as we're wrapping up, I wanted to ask this last question.
uh-huh.
I wanted to know if you have any relocation advice or tips for someone maybe moving for a job.
Yeah, of course.
Across the country. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my tips is the first one: when you're interviewing, you have to ask about relocation. So how do they do relocation? Will they reimburse you? Also, when you're looking for jobs, even before the interview, if there is a place that you do not want to live, don't apply for a job there. So, for example, if you know you don't want to live in Idaho, don't apply for a job in Idaho, because if they offer you the right amount of money, maybe you'll take the job. And so if I know there are folks that are like, okay, these are certain areas or regions I don't want to live, so maybe don't look for jobs there. But if you are going to be open, then be aware of cost of living. So making $60,000 in DC versus making $60,000 in Texas are totally different. And so
Mm-hmm.
and even when you get, because this is how they get a lot of folks in higher ed, they show you you know, your pre-taxed salary, and that's how you go get an apartment and things. When you don't think about, okay, I'm going to have my retirement coming out of this, I'm going to have
Yeah.
federal and
They
state taxes coming out of this.
come on, come
And
on.
so just being realistic, because maybe you can afford an apartment for $1,800 on paper, but then once you get your check, you realize, oh, I can't pay rent for $1,800 because I have a car note and I have these other things, and I only get paid monthly, and so my check is going to be gone basically at the beginning of the month. that's also something to think about too, is asking about how you get paid. Because if you're
Mhm.
moving across the country and you're not going to get paid for the first month, okay, how do you pay your bills when you get there? How do you buy groceries? How do you do these things? And so asking about pay. Also, if you can have savings, you know, whether it's a few $100s or a few $1,000s, having some money just saved up if you can. In higher education in particular, that can be difficult if you are coming out of a graduate assistantship, but trying to have money saved because that also helps. And then telling people you're moving. I know a lot of people are like, I don't like to tell people what I'm doing. But I know for me, I had friends that connected me with other people. So when I moved here, I made friends with a mutual friend. We had a friend that went to undergrad. He went to undergrad with me. He went to grad school with her. And he was like, you know, you and Lex need to become friends because y'all are both moving here at the same time. And she's been my friend since I've been here. And so letting people know so they can help you build connections, letting your mentors know so they can connect you with folks too, because you will need to build community. Um, and then one of the other things about relocating, and this is relocating in general, not just for a job, that
Mhm.
you're going to lose friends as you
Mhm.
transition. And I think that is one of the hardest things that some people go through is that, okay, now I'm living in a new city and I have to make friends, but then I also have to maintain the relationships that I once had. And so I always joke that me and my best friend probably talk more now than we did when we used to live together and see each other every day because we are forced to be intentional. We're forced to pick up the phone, to get up in the morning and send a text or send a voice memo. So just being aware of that with the relationships, that
Mhm.
you have to put in effort. It does take work. And then the last and final thing is that when you move away, you may be changing and progressing in ways that the people that you were once around aren't. Um, and that goes for family and friends. And being okay with people saying, "Oh, she moved away and she act different," or "She moved away and," because your perspective on the world may change because now you have more information. You're gonna see new things. Your horizons may be broadened. And so just being okay with knowing that you're not going to be the same person either. Even though you're moving for a job and you may be advancing career wise, you will have a lot of personal growth and development.
Okay, those was really good. I really enjoyed those tips and
You're
that
welcome.
advice. Definitely really appreciate you for coming on here, taking some time to share your experience about relocating. I feel like this one was really great because some people relocate for jobs now, but sometimes you know how everything's remote and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People are not relocating as much, but just having that experience to know, because now if you work in higher ed, you kind of got to be student facing. So
Yeah.
that's a good one for that. It's not that many remote options out there, and that, of course, like other jobs too, like nursing and stuff like that. So I feel like this was a great, information about what to do, how to do it, and different things like that. Yeah. So if you are listening to this, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all subscribe, share this with someone that you know that is moving, or if you are moving as well, just let us know how you enjoyed this episode. And make sure to check the link in the description to get a free relocation expense tracker. So have a great rest of y'all day whenever y'all listen to this. Bye.
Bye.